Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the October edition of Philanthropy Club. My name is Lisa Mae Simpson. I get to serve as the Vice President for Learning and Engagement here at Forefront. And I am really grateful to be here with this amazing group of fundraisers and including all of you. So thank you for being part of the conversation today. If you are not familiar with Forefront, we are a statewide organization serving operating nonprofits and grant makers throughout the state of Illinois. Our mission is to build a vibrant social impact sector for all the people of Illinois. And we are really grateful to be the host of Philanthropy Club, which you probably know has been meeting monthly for many years and serving the learning and development needs of fundraisers and nonprofit professionals like all of you. So today we have, I think, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I hope you are too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of unpacking things that we maybe take for granted when it comes to the work of fundraising and running nonprofits. Before we dig into that, just a couple of housekeeping notes. You may already be familiar with how we run these things. I would invite you first of all to introduce yourself in the chat. And if you don't see the chat easily, you can find that down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Just click that up. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, your name, your organization, we'd love to know who you are and where you're Zooming in from. And we are recording this, so if you'd like to come back and review the conversation later, you can do that. If you have questions for the panel at any point during the conversation today, we'd invite you to put those into the Q&A, and that is a separate box, again, down at the bottom of your Zoom screen that'll allow us to separate out what's directed towards the panelists and what's directed to fellow participants. So thank you for your help in helping us track that. And with that, I will get ready to turn it over to my colleague, Yusuf Garcia. So just a little bit of context before I hand things over. As you may know, we plan these Philanthropy Club topics about a year in advance. And a shout out to my colleague, Kenitha Montgomery, who helps us organize and keep this whole train running. If you would like to join that group of session organizers, if you have an idea for a conversation that you'd like to see on one of these monthly calls, please reach out to Key. She is going to put her contact information in the chat. We are getting ready to plan next year's, and we would love to have your voice included in that process. So about a year ago, we were planning this year's programs, and this topic of creating a culture of fundraising in your organization bubbled up. And I thought, yeah, that's something that we should be paying attention to. And then I sort of forgot about it. And then the world shut down and caught on fire. And then a month ago, I thought, Key reminded me, like, hey, you volunteered to play in this session. And I thought, oh, dear God, what are we going to talk about? And then I got quiet for a second and I thought, okay, well, is this still relevant? And the answer came pretty quickly, yes. Yes, it definitely is. And one of the first people to come to mind to help me think through what this conversation should look like is my colleague Yusuf. He serves as the Vice President for Development and Communications at Forefront. And I have gotten to work closely with him and also watch him work over the last 2 years to do exactly what we're talking about today. I have experienced as his colleague, he and his team have really worked very hard to bring all of us into the process of carrying the fundraising water, as he likes to say. And so I was inspired to ask him to partner with me on this, and I'm so glad that I did, because he's brought together this amazing group of colleagues who are going to dive into a conversation that we'll get to hear now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yusuf and to Darius and Julie. Thank you all so much.
All right, Lisa, thank you very much. And everyone who is frantically rapid fire chatting, thank you very much for your engagement, and thank you for showing up and hopefully showing out this morning. And also, just to add to the housekeeping for the folks who are tuning in, we are not going to have a separate Q&A portion. We're going to try to answer your questions throughout this conversation. So feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. And then Lisa and I will sort of triangulate to make sure to answer all the questions that do pop up. And then secondly, I just want to thank you all. I recognize, Forefront recognize that, and Julie and Darius and the group were pre-gaming and talking about this, how the current environment is nonstop. For folks in the fundraising and philanthropic sector, historically, this may be a time of reawakening as your new fiscal year is starting. You can take a couple of extra deep breaths with planning and prospecting and stewarding, and we know that that's just not the case right now. So I want to thank you for being with us through this traumatic period, and we hope this conversation is enlightening and valuable for you all. And Julie and Darius, thank you both very much for offering your time. We realize how busy you are. And for the audience, what I'd like to do is two things really quickly. Share a little bit about why this group sort of formed. As Lisa mentioned, I serve as VP of Development and Communications for Forefront. Been an active frontline fundraiser for about 15 years. Darius, I'd love for you and Julie to share also how you're alumni in the fundraising space. Though you represent funding institutions, your DNA is very much laced with fundraising. So that's something that I'd like for you to share with the audience. But before that, I want to take a second to just ask, how are you doing today? How are you doing this morning, given everything that is happening in our world and in our community? I know that's a very loaded question, but I think it's worth acknowledging. So Julie, if you wouldn't mind starting, just letting us know how you're doing today.
Well, thank you, Yusuf. So I'm thrilled to be here today to participate in this great discussion. And actually, I'm excited about our conversation. So today I feel pretty good. I feel good about the fact that we're able to have this conversation together and that we're surrounded by people with like minds and interests. I think I said it earlier today, let's focus on what we can control, right? And that was something that I read a quote from Michelle Obama where she said, focus on what you can control. And that's kind of stayed with me throughout this whole crisis. I really enjoy thinking about fundraising, thinking about philanthropy in general, and being of service in whatever way that we can. So the organization I work for is the Community Foundation of Fox River Valley. We are a 70+ year organization that's in the outskirts of Chicago, so out by St. Charles all the way through Aurora and Plano. So we serve a large area of all of Kendall County through the Tri-Cities. And it's a privilege to be the president and CEO of that organization and to be able to lead this organization during this time. I started as the president and CEO in January and then had our annual meeting in March. And then sure enough, the pandemic hit right after. And during this time, I think what I have really been thinking about the most is, that this is not going to define us as an organization this period of time. While there may be some obstacles and while there may be some particular things that we do differently during this time, our operations are continuing. We are continuing to serve our donors. We are continuing to serve our community, and we are learning ways to adapt and do things differently. But this moment doesn't define our organization. What our mission is defines us, and how we do what we do defines us. And if I keep that in the back of my mind every day, then I don't get caught up in the moment that we're in. And I think that is how I've been addressing these days where it seems like there's so much anxiety in the air. And remembering that we too will get through this, just like many other generations have gotten through historic periods in time in the past. And I think being a 70-year-old organization, that helps me to think that there's been plenty of years where there's been ups and downs within this organization. They've always pulled through. And I know that we will pull through this time. And in fact, we're excelling as we do it. We, actually are conquering, new ways of attracting donors and getting their attention and engaging them, and in ways making it easier to connect with people, even though it's different. So that may be kind of a long-winded answer, say, how am I today? I think today I feel pretty good about who we are as an organization, who I am as our president and CEO, and what we're accomplishing.
Nice.
I've been in this field. You wanted to know a little bit about our path, Yusuf. So I've been doing this for about 25, 30 years. I have my master's in social work and started more as a frontline worker, and realized that in order to have programs and deliver services, you have to have money to be able to do that. You have to have funding to support your efforts. So I started doing grant writing and really looking at how do we raise the funds in order to support the good work that we're doing. And I was working at a community mental health center at the time, and we were able to secure some grants that allowed us to support our work in schools and working with young people. And I think that just sparked that fire in me to say, this is where I want to devote my efforts so that I can continue to find ways to do more of what we do well in the community. So I've had multiple different positions in fundraising and philanthropy, and now I'm here at the Community Foundation and just really enjoying building the culture of fundraising and philanthropy here.
Thank you, Julie. And Darius, my good man, the mic is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kate. Julie, so great to have spent this time with you. I'm exhausted. That's where I am. I am exhausted. And I think the important thing, and I actively took the time this weekend, I'm feeling my spirit is uneasy and I'm exhausted physically. And part of the work this weekend was to allow myself that space, but then to kind of do what's causing it. What's causing it is two pandemics, that every day you don't know what the abyss is. You go into a day thinking you know a bottom. Every day in small ways and big, we realize that this is unparalleled, unlike any other time. So there's that. You've got to give yourself grace there. It's just the unknown. On a more micro, the foundation just managed on behalf of the university our first ever gala. Our first inaugural First Gen Scholarship Gala that was scheduled to happen in May at the Hyatt, the beautiful hotel, and then immediately had to start pivoting and took place Friday. We did 70% of the show live from our high definition studio. So there was that. There's always, as fund developers on this call knows, coming down from that. So I literally took this weekend and went, okay, do the thing that you do. Search for the silver linings. Fantastic event that achieved its $250,000 goal. A resonant emotional event. I have a fantastic board of directors who in the trenches had our back and held us down. I received a text from the president of the university, who is a fantastic fundraiser, but said to me, I want to get even better. This is the level of leadership from our president. I want to get even better, and I want you to help me do that. And my response to her was absolutely immediately, let me get some supports in place. Let's have a meeting. Let's do this. So that is where I am. And it reminds me of where I started the first pandemic before the murder of Mr. Floyd. And we moved and realized we were in a second pandemic that never really ended. I said to myself, sitting right behind me, I want to be very cognizant and aware of how I respond to this pandemic. The grace I extend to myself, the grace I extend to others, because I want two things are going to happen. We're going to get through this, as Julie said, or it's the rapture. Either way, I need to be prepared, to be very honest. So I just want to make sure when this is all said and done that I am proud of how I comported myself, how I treated, loved, and extended grace to myself, and how I did that to others. So that's kind of how I've been working on all this. And it's strange because I live on Michigan Avenue, I'm a Black man in America. And it's strange, I'm a 52-year-old Black guy from the east side of Detroit, first generation college graduate. And I can say in some degree, small p, lowercase, I have the privilege of a job I love. I'm not an essential employee, so I don't have to make a choice of my life every day on the front line between feeding my family and putting myself at risk. So I am bound and determined, even when I'm feeling uneasy in spirit, to be of service to the student scholars that I have the privilege of supporting, to be of service to people around me, to be kind to the staff at Jewel Osco, to be kind to the staff at UPS, to be kind to my coworkers, to apologize immediately. So in some ways, I said to my therapist, I think I'm gonna look back at 2020, strange as it may seem, and say this was one of the best years and most important years of my life. So that fullness of uncertainty, unsettledness, sense of gratitude and grace, and a sense of, and I think part of why I'll look back at 2020, because all bets are off. Everything, the system was not built for me. And clearly it's not working for us as a country or us as a world. So we can try everything. It's not working. So think out of the box, from fundraising, from how you treat each other, how you live your life, how you live an authentic self. So with that uneasiness, with that uncertainty, I work in an organization that by design under new leadership is in change management. The world is in change management. And there is something about my spirit that finds that oddly enlightening and oddly uplifting, because you can try anything. Because we're failing. So we're surviving the failure so far. So let's get out with the fear of failure and let's try different stuff. Let's treat each other differently. Let's try different things. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And Darius and Julie, thank you. I really, excuse me, for everyone. Well, and also just so you know, Julie and Darius, the feedback that we're getting around everyone's candidness is very much appreciated. So thank you for sharing. It seems like, Darius, that maybe throughout, as a conversation progresses, if you could revisit your final words. It seems like there was a little bit of a technical glitch where you got cut off a little bit. So maybe we can revisit that as the conversation progresses. But I think you both have helped set the stage for our conversation today beautifully, which is this concept of change management and systems change specific to fundraising. So for the folks who are tuning in, as Lisa mentioned in the opening, we had the idea long ago that, how is creating a culture of fundraising relevant? And to the points of Darius and Julie, yes, more than ever, because the whole world is changing. So what if, and the question was asked, what if we apply those same concepts of systems change, dismantling of white supremacist behaviors, patriarchal behaviors, et cetera, how can all that be applied to one's organization fundraising efforts? So what I wanted to sort of put out to the group is maybe a common definition of what this means, so folks can sort of have a base. So Darius, do me a favor, to the best of your ability, how would you define a culture of fundraising?
Oh gosh, it is where everyone understands the importance and the power and the why of it. And that we as the quarterbacks, those in the development department, the institutional advancement, understand that we are just that. It is our job to make it easy, put in infrastructure for everyone who touches your mission to feel empowered to be a fund developer. And it is for us to understand that that is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's like this is relationship. And I am in a change environment. I have just crossed my first year with Chicago State Foundation. The foundation is only 5 years old, serving an institution that's 153 years old. That is a state-funded institution, predominantly Black institution, without a deep history of philanthropy or fundraising, state dollars, and even internally. So it has taken the last year to give folks the comfort that we're going to have your back as we ask you to lean into philanthropy and fundraising. Consistency, all the things that go into developing a relationship go into developing a culture of fundraising. It is the explanation of the why, the safety net that is, we've got you. We're going to ask you to do certain things. That also forces your mission to honor its commitment. I don't ask my friends to do something or support something that isn't doing what it says it's doing. So that allows, so with that culture of fundraising, I say to staff, top to bottom, receptionist to president, you have a right to hold yourself and each other accountable for the delivery of this. So you are proud, because one of the key challenges of creating a culture of fundraising is that we do message points, but not the actual work. And your internal audience, where you're creating that internal, it has to begin from inside. If I can see how the sausage is made and know that you are not really telling the truth, I'm not that stupid and you are not that smart. We're not selling that today. So part of it is being all the things of a good relationship: transparency, honesty, bringing people along, removing the silos so I can see the value of what Youssef is doing and go, yes, he's a part of this, and making sure everybody really understands and demonstrating from the top down, side to side, our respect for what we're doing. You know, what I found with this gala, I can look a year ago to now, the way that the faculty stepped up and stepped out, showed up and showed out. I get because I'm a fundraiser, I get every single dollar that comes in. I get a ding. 2 o'clock in the morning, I know if you've given money to this university. Trust and believe me, I'm not playing with you. So to see where our staff was a year ago when I first got there, and you have to ask them, what do you need to support this organization? And when they tell you, you have to honor it. Because I know if you're just having a meeting with me to check it off the box, and you can't rush through that process. So for me, that's what all of that is. And right now, a year and a half into my work, I'm seeing those results. But part of it is for us as quarterbacks, when you're getting that pressure. Someone once told me in my current job, I won't name names, there's no time for a strategic plan. Just whiteboard it. And I went, oh, there is and there must be. It is going to feel to you that I'm not moving quickly. But once I start moving, I don't like to do fits and starts. So you have to, as the quarterback, be the expert, step into the space and go, trust me, keep saying it, get your allies, and then be consistent, just like a relationship. Don't, if you break my heart, tell me you're sorry and tell me how you're not going to do it again and what you've learned from it. But tell me why you need it. If I say, and say to me, you have a say in this. You can't say to, I want you to be fundraisers, but you don't have a say. Just give the money. That doesn't work with an external funding partner. That certainly doesn't work with creating a culture of philanthropy. And my one final piece, because I work, and for the rest of my career, I've been very clear about this. I'm going to spend the rest of my career supporting education for Black and Brown students. I say it unabashedly. That is where my focus is. That is where my heart is. That is where my passion is. That is where I want to be, because passion has to be in this work. It's hard. But as I say to all the folks that we're working with every day, you've got to believe in this, and we've got to help you believe in this, and we've got to support you in believing this, and we've got to earn that. But that's day in, day out in the dash moments. It's not just give me money right now. It is, I said to our former alumni president, he said to me why they wouldn't support him. And it was my first meeting. I had literally barely gotten in the chair, and then they went at me, and I was like, but you have a right. My empathy said, you have a right, you're alum. Your heart's broken. We've broken your heart over and over again, and you don't quit us. But you said to me, my wife and I used to give you all tons of money, and then a number of things, self-inflicted and otherwise. And my response to him was, because he said, promise me. I said, stop you. I've just made you all the promises I'm going to make. I'm not going to make you promises I know we can't keep. That just breaks your heart. And the other thing, tell me everything you want, and I can tell you before you begin, you can't have them all. This was literally in the room. I said, but the things we agreed to, I'm going to move heaven and earth to make sure you have. But you're going to walk out of here and know you can't have everything you want. That's just not how the world works. That's not life. 6, maybe 7 weeks later, they had their first annual meeting in 3 years. And he called me to the stage and he said, he told the story because Bob tells it like he means it, which is why I adore him. And he said, I told this gentleman, he told the story, and he reached in his pocket and pulled out an envelope. And again, on my sleeve, I began to well, I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, you've already started earning our respect back. Here's a check from my wife. You got to do the work. You got to do the work, and you got to do it consistently. And you can't tell people when to forgive you. You can't say, I'm doing better now, forgive me, give me. That's not how it works.
Darius, thank you. Julie, but right before you share your perspective, thank you everyone who's attending, who are typing in their questions. Jennifer Cunningham, your question was received. We'll get to that because that's a very, very good timely question. So keep the questions coming, folks. And Julie, let me pass the mic to you. How would you define, from your perspective, both in terms of your institution and your community, how you would define a culture of fundraising?
So, I agree with everything that Darius said. I think one of the things that we've been discussing at our organization is that, it takes a village, and we are a village here, and each one of us play a role with all of the work that we do. And it doesn't matter what your role is at the organization. Every time that you have the opportunity, and I speak of it as an opportunity, to talk to a donor, to do a service for a donor to our organization, that is just that. It's an opportunity to engage with a donor. And I think sometimes we can get hung up on tasks and the amount of work that we have to get done, and forget that every time we get an opportunity to talk with a donor, someone that's giving to our organization so that we can do the great work that we do, that is our opportunity to show them how much we care about them and how much we trust in them, and that they should trust in us to do the work that we're doing. And so it's really establishing that relationship with every single person that we encounter, whether or not they've given to us or not. To be honest, it doesn't matter. Every time somebody makes a call to our organization and wants to know more about us, we should be so grateful to be able to answer that phone and say, hi, here's who we are. Every time we put something out to the public, it's being able to say, here's who we are, and we're grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you about what we do. Every time that we get to process something for someone, even though it's administratively heavy and it might take hours to do, a grant request or whatever it is an opportunity to steward our donors, to give them something in return for something that they're giving us, and to showcase who we are. And without that support, we don't exist. And I just keep reminding us, as a team, that our culture here needs to be one in which we're grateful for the opportunity to serve, and that it truly is something that we should continue to thank our donors for, and continue to thank our board, that this is an opportunity for us to serve this community. And that, if we don't want to be in this space, if we start feeling that anxiety or that stress, and it's one of those moments, then we need to reflect on that and do some self-care. And I think we talked a little bit about that earlier, and Darius, you talked about how important that is. And I think especially in this profession, that, and especially during these times when things are off, that when we start feeling that level of exhaustion and our energy isn't there, and we start feeling like it's not really an opportunity, that it's more of a task,
Sure.
and it's poor and it's hard, then we need to self-reflect, and we need to say, okay, I'm not being my best self today, so what do I need to do to get that back? And I think if it means taking a half day, if it means taking a long walk at lunch, if it means, finding some humor in the work that we're doing, and, how we're approaching our life, that all of that, we have to find a way to be our best selves in order to have that culture of philanthropy. Because if we're not who we are at our best, and granted, I'm not at my best 100% of the time, and I know that. But when I start feeling that way, I know it. And I know what I need to do to make myself feel like I can do the job I need to do, and what my donors deserve me to do, and what my community needs from me.
Julie, thank you. And Darius and Julie, let's stay here for a moment, because I'm finding this perspective, this is an interesting moment in the conversation, because what I'm hearing is, Julie, service is a core value.
Yes.
Darius, you mentioned this before, that a core value, maybe not a value, but a passion, commitment, is to be a builder. From the forefront perspective, you know, something that how I define and how I try to define for my team that culture of fundraising is to think about this article my husband sent me a little while ago when he knew that we were putting this conversation together. He was like, oh, you know what you guys should read? It's this great article from 2008 about the difference between the cowboy mentality and the pit crew mentality. And what I found in the 2 years of serving with Forefront, we're moving from a more maverick cowboy fundraising mentality into a pit crew mentality, where everyone has their vital role to play in order to keep that car safe, sustained, and to win. And in our case, winning means securing a grant, securing a gift, securing resources. What I find fascinating, and something that I've stuck to, is to focus less externally and more internally. What do I need to do as a leader to ensure that my fundraisers, my communications team are safe, that their mental health is being cared for, that they have empathy and space to produce amazing deliverables under very unideal circumstances. So I would like to stay here for a moment. As leaders, we have a responsibility to our people, our staff, our teams, to give them the resources they need to get to the next step, whether it's in our organizations or somewhere else. So as we're building a culture of fundraising, I would love to hear your perspective on some pro tips on how do we take care of our people in the best way possible, so that they can take care of our donors in the best way. So Darius, I'd love to hear your perspective, because also I think Jennifer, this sort of Jennifer Cunningham's question about, so her question was, how do we remove those silos? How can we build this right?
Oh, Jennifer, here we go. Okay.
And I will say, Jennifer, your question is so timely, because that's something at Forefront we've really been trying to do, is break out of those silos and to collaborate authentically and meaningfully, so that everyone is a part of the pit crew. So she mentions that, and bear with me, she was working with her accounting team, who mentioned that the accounting team and the accounting manager understands the importance of what development does, but not everyone else on staff does. So to me, this is singing the song of a cowboy versus the pit crew. And how does a development team bring other folks internally along on the journey? So Darius, if you could take a stab at that, about how,
I live this.
As a builder, how do you build that and break the silos?
Yeah, this is the ultimate question that I think moves us all to the next level if we can manage it. And once we've managed it, continue to do the work, because it's a muscle, it will default back to atrophy. I am vulnerable and honest with my team. There are certain things I will protect them from, but I say to them from the moment I interviewed them, I hire leaders and work with leaders and empower and support leaders, because words are things. I talk to my team. It is even more important for those of us who manage teams in this virtual space to connect even more, and to begin with the grace that you began with today. You said, how are you feeling? Because this is a fast moving, but if they're not at their best, if they don't feel supported, this is a vulnerable space asking people for time and treasure. So I am honest with my team. And here's the other thing they know, and I show them through words and actions. I will roll up these sleeves and get in the trenches with you. I'm not going to be a boss. That's the difference between a boss and a leader, and I'm going to tell you that. And my deputy director, who I think might be on this call, he said to me, I said something to him after an incredible day. And he began a year ago as my special assistant, and he saved my life. 6 weeks after I joined the organization, I went, oh, I'm going to need support. and he came like manna from heaven. And I've said to him on just regular days, I have to tell you how much I appreciate you and how grateful I am. And the shock may be an overstatement, but his pleasant surprise that his boss would say that and say it consistently tells me that we all as leaders have more work to do, because someone that talented should be hearing it a lot. Because I'm also going to be the same one to say to you, here's where there were areas of opportunity, because I respect you. But I am vulnerable. I am authentic. I don't believe that the best way to get work out of people, and I may have before without even realizing it, was to instill fear. It is to instill power. It is to empower them. Make mistakes. I tell my team, make mistakes. Just don't let me be the last one to hear about them. And when you come and tell me about them, these are just the ground rules. When you come and tell me about them, have a plan for fixing them. Because sometimes for fundraisers, the mistake is the best thing that can happen, because it shows how you act in the dash moments in the trenches. And that speaks more to your funders. About Jennifer's other, and so every day, do it until it becomes a habit. I had to intentionally do those things some years ago, but now it is so a part of who I am. I mean it. It was always authentic, but it just comes naturally. Even on our gala last week, I took the time to name their names. They are doing the work. They are in the trenches. I can't be great if they aren't being great, which means we can't be great for the university. And then on silos, I think I have staff on this phone as well. I would always say to them, and they joke about it, let's walk the building. And I mean literally get up and walk the building. Walk it. Walk it, go say hello so they can see your face. And again, explain why you need that report. And make sure that you honor what they're doing. We're fundraising, but they are doing yeoman's work. That is the rubber meets the road, where they're dealing with the abused teen, or they're dealing with the family that needs the food pantry, or they're dealing with the mother of two who, if we do not give her wraparound services and take her call at 9 o'clock at night, won't get that degree. Honor and respect that and have empathy for others. But then with grace, hold people accountable, but tell them why you respect them enough to hold them accountable. And then don't call people only when there's a crisis, because we want to get out of the default position that if development comes down this hall, oh my God, those evil, the team at Urban League used to say, we could hear your team when you all walk. You all know that you started wearing the same colors every day. And we could hear the click of your little heels, clickety, clickety, click. But that was only half joking, but it was also where we would say, we're going to sit with you. And what I found, Jennifer, is that expanded my skill set, where I can now look at a program design and go, have you looked at that? I think that might be, because they allow me in the room where I go, I just want to listen to how you design this. You're talented. And then they come to me and go, how do you do that? And then, because I say to them, in order for us to sell, I'm the salesperson. You're the engineer. You're the designers. Tell me what you do. Not just when I want to report, but tell me what you do. Tell me what you do, because I want to bring funders into this. I want to expose what you're doing. This is magic. It's not, you need to give me a report. It is a genuine, if you're going to be successful in fund development, you have to not go, but they don't ever respond. We have to be the same adults in the room. We're the ones who connect with the external world. They're in here doing the work. We get to go outside and get air and go have meetings at corporations and foundation offices. Have some grace. And really have a deep desire to know more about what they're doing. People sense authenticity. Now, you're still going to have troubled moments, because that's just the beautiful friction that needs to exist between fund development and programming. It just has to. But they're going to respect you, where I get now, instead of I hate you so much as, oh, I hate to love you. Here, I'll get it to you by noon. Okay, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
Yeah. And
I got on the call with our leadership team. This is my final piece on this at the university, our partners. And I began the call with this, sometimes a joke. I went, and it was true, but I made a joke. I didn't sleep well last night. My spirit is uneasy. And our provost, to her credit, she's like, oh gosh, why is it uneasy? I said, well, thank you for asking. Because this, and this do. And literally with everything they had going on, she said, okay, we're going to set 3 meetings up today. I'm going to get the right people on the call for you. At the end of the day, 5 o'clock after the 3rd or 4th meeting, she said to me, are you feeling better? Will you sleep tonight? I'm like, yes, I will, and thank you. So it's all of those things in tangible ways and intangible ways. We've got to respect what or show them we respect it. I know we respect it, but get engaged, ask questions because you want to know. Tell them why it matters, not that you owe me a report. I want this for you so badly so we can do these things. Can you just do this for me? And then sometimes lean over the middle and go, you know what? If you can just get me this, I'll add these 4 lines. I'll do this. I'll go over the line for you. Because the more we can build that trust, that silos come out of a lack of trust. I don't trust you. I got to cover my butt because I don't. Feels like a deficit. Instead of going, we're all in this together. If you drop the ball, just call me and tell me you did it. Call me. I got you. So those are my thoughts.
Darius, thank you. So many threads there. But Julie, from your perspective, how do you find the sort of, think about it in sort of terms of a formula, taking care of your team and how that relates to the proper stewardship and service to your donors? How are they connected from your point of view?
Yeah, I think being genuine to my team, so in terms of what Darius was mentioning about, being kind of honest with, yourself, and then also being honest with your team, and showing that, being that genuine person, recognizing when I'm at fault, recognizing that we're not perfect, recognizing that, this is a marathon and not a race. And that, when we do make a mistake, that we can overcome that with our donors. Recognizing that some things are really important and that we're all going to pitch in as a team to make that happen. And then it's not one person's responsibility, but all of ours to serve. And I think when we can show that kind of genuineness as a leader, that same genuineness is what we give to our donors, right? It's that same spirit of being honest about what we're capable of doing, who we are at that moment, acknowledging what we can and can't do as an organization, and giving acknowledgement to our team that this isn't just a one-man show because I'm meeting with the donor, but it's everyone that is building up who we are as an organization. And the fact that we're able to do that takes lots of people that donor doesn't get to see. And so it's that constant recognition, I think, for one thing, and letting our staff know that they're recognized for their work. And then the other piece, I think, is education. It's helping our team feel like they're continuing to grow as a professional. So finding opportunities where they can continue to learn about philanthropy, continue to learn about ways to do their craft more efficiently, in a way that represent them well, where they feel good about what they're doing, where they're still growing and learning, and letting our donors know what we're doing to enhance ourselves as an organization. So I think educating, when you think about silos, a lot of times people, become kind of tuned into what they're doing because that's what they know. If we allow them to learn more about our work and the importance of what we're doing and how that is impacted by what they're doing, then all of a sudden it becomes a little more knowledgeable about, so that's why you need that. Okay, I will help get that done.
Yes.
And
that's why you need a budget that's actually laid out. Okay.
Yes, right. Right. And it just gets back to this idea of, we all can't do our work without one another. And that we all, the same way that we would steward a donor and help make them feel comfortable and help them understand what it is that we're doing as an organization, is the same way that we should steward each individual that we encounter at our organization, and helping them feel that same feeling of respect and helping to build that same level of trust.
Yeah, Julia, and I love that. And the one, I suppose, an anchor for me has been to treat this concept of partnerships, to shepherd my team to cultivate my team the same way that I have a commitment to cultivating and stewarding donors, like to give that the same value of attention,
Yes.
value, reward, education. I have to do the same for my team in order for them to want to do, and for me to apply that same energy to the folks who are investing in the organization. Really quickly, we talked about trust, and Barb Vickery, Barb, thank you for your question, talked about trust. And how can we establish a deeper trust within program staff? You know, that constant friction, Darius, that you said that sort of has to exist. And Barb, I hope we sort of touched upon that by making yourself vulnerable, making yourself more curious, perhaps, to get to know. And Darius, that you said it so poignantly, you know, like, what do you do? I want to get to know you. You're going to be my, you know, and really create that meaningful, that channel, that circuit of reciprocity and almost dependence in a healthy way to start building that trust.
We're built to like people.
Yes.
We're built to like humans.
And Darius, it's an interesting point, because I think as leaders in fund development or fundraising, whatever nomenclature and jargon we're using, that's what our role is to create those bonds, and that's what we're good at. And what I've been trying to answer is, how can I bring other folks along with me as resources in my tool belt to create a more vibrant picture about what Forefront is doing to get folks on the Forefront bus. And I think that ties into Mary Jane's question about, and Mary, I hope I'm just going to go with Mary. I apologize if it's Mary Jane. Mary asks a very good question about, how do you, as fundraisers and leaders, sort of change the ask? And Mary, this is what I'm interpreting from your question, and these are my words, but her team is typically, all right, to their donors, the question is asked, we need you to invest. We need more money. We need an increased sponsorship. So it's the question is a bit more transactional, perhaps.
Yes.
She mentions that she's moving the organization into changing how the structure of the ask is shepherded. So I know at Forefront, what we've been trying to do is really create a type of pathway, a path that our donors can come along with us to really show that we're partnering to build a more vibrant social impact sector in Illinois. So it's changing from give us $10,000 for our annual luncheon into let's co-architect a true partnership that elevates the whole state. So highlighting the value proposition of the organization versus a dollar sign. So I'm curious, Darius, from your perspective, how have you in your career sort of changed the narrative of the ask to be more partnership oriented than transactional?
I love that question, and we've all dealt with it. That is why I said to our board of directors at Chicago Urban League during an in-service, again, building that culture of philanthropy and not assuming just because of someone's title or that they sit on the board, that they understand their role in that culture. And I remember saying to them, I don't particularly, and I said this to you, Yusef, I don't particularly love the word fundraising. I tend to say fund development, and that is why. Fundraising for me, because I'm old, it reminds me of the transactional days of fundraising, but then I can still smoke at my desk and I literally drink during the workday. Good times. But in the intervening years, it is now bundled requests where I began a meeting with not the financial request, but let's get to know each other. We would rather have, I believe, in fund development, I would rather have 10 multi-layered, visceral partnerships that include time, treasure, people, helping us with curriculum, your team is mentoring, plus money, than 25 rinse and repeat. Because as soon as we have the next pandemic or the next recession, they leave you. The true partnerships, they may give less, but as long as the world is still open, if they feel a visceral human connection to you, but that is counterintuitive to what we've been taught. So to Mary, you are absolutely correct. But the other thing I said to our board at Urban League we're going to ask you for transformational gifts. And to your point, Julie, when you said it, I almost jumped through the video and hugged you. And I said, and we're going to give you the opportunity. But here's how I think we have challenges. We're afraid to ask because if we ask, they'll feel an accountability to ask us, well, what are you really doing? Show us your reports. So then we kind of go, do you want to give? Instead of going, okay, we are going to ask for transformational gifts. We are going to bundle it. We want your time and treasure. The lights will not keep themselves on through hope and prayer. So we are going to need money, but what we also need is this because we really want to move the needle and stick the landing. But the underpin of that we have to push our organizations, you have to become accountable. Why do you need a transformational gift? If you cannot articulate that to me, you cannot. The worst thing we can do is walk into a room, because I've been there, and you've got the funding partner right where you want them. We've done our job. And then they say to our mission, what do you need it for? I need everything. I mean, we just need money. If I'm because I've been a funder, I'm a funder, so I walk out and go, that's just exhausting. They make me feel like nothing I do is going to be valuable because it's just a mess. Instead of saying, based on what your giving guidelines are, here's how we believe we can work together. You come in, bring your team in, and I'll give you an example without naming a name. A partner is about to come in, and our next meeting is they are bringing in their top team from around the world to give us, to do, as we're calling it, a scoping session of our computer science degree. And because they hire tons of folks, they can tell us what the Howards and the HBCUs and what those universities are, and what they're offering and what they can bring. With that will come money, but also with that will come their staff being mentors and our formalized mentoring program. So we're not just saying we need you to do stuff. I don't make an ask of a funding partner until I can present a compelling case for support, show them exactly in a thoughtful budget, not an esoteric one, how their money's being spent. So the onus falls on us in development to really hold our teams with love accountable. We're the experts. I defer to the CFO because she, or they are the expert in what they do. You know what I'm saying? So when I say to you, we have to, and I've just done this recently, with love, I won't take that meeting. With love, I won't, but I'll help you get what you need for me to do that for you. I just won't give you a problem and leave you on your own. So I think to Yusuf, I know that's a big answer, but I think it begins at the bottom line of why do you want it? Every interview I've had, and one colleague called me petulant in the interview. She literally called me petulant. I still got the job, so it worked out. But I said in the interview, because again, you have to know who I am. If I'm not the right fit, it's a relationship. And I said, what I will not do is ambulance checks. I won't ask for money just for the sake of asking for money. That won't hold up. So part of our job in fund development versus fundraising is to take that deeper holistic look with our partner institution or organization and go, let's talk about, so if we're doing our part, it forces other parts of the system to do their some programs, right. The CEO's office. That is the holistic nature of fund development versus just fundraising. And that's a rinse and repeat. I don't want to rinse and repeat. I want relationships that are going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to, just like when I was in Detroit, and I learned this in real time. I was in Detroit in 2008 when the bottom fell out and General Motors were going under. And the president of the foundation, Rod Gillum, called me. He said, listen, you're about to get a call from AP and USA Today. We're cutting off funding. You will be one of 2 arts organizations that we continue to fund, UNDIA. But wait for it. We have to cut you by 60% and we need that money back. First time money was given and taken back. And I remember going to my board chair and my CEO. And my CEO initial response was, no, I said, stop talking. And that's the first time I said that to my CEO, but we were in a situation. I said, they're a partner. We have a theater with General Motors' name on it. They may go away, but we are going to support them. So your interview's in 20 minutes. Remind yourself of why they've been great partners, sitting in here, coming to our training sessions, supporting our students, being mentors. And immediately, to his credit, he went, you're right. But that's somewhere in there, everyone. What I said makes sense. I hope you get it.
No, Darius, thank you. I think that's a good tee up for Julie's perspective, because I'm curious. So Julie, really quickly, I also, Darius, what I'm hearing in there, and Mary, I hope this refortifies, is not to be afraid of your value. I've learned in the
Yes.
past 2 years at Forefront is not to be timid in an ask, because if you're timid in an ask, that inherently shows perhaps some disbelief in one's own value proposition. And that's part of the systems change, is that everyone understands, okay, they have their role, they're confident as subject matter expertise. We should all collectively highlight our value proposition in a narrative case for support, or a conversation in a meeting that really highlights our value, both to our stakeholders who take advantage of the services, but also, you know, in Forefront's case, our statewide stakeholders in the various different sectors. Julie, I'm curious, from your perspective, how are you, as a community foundation, sort of, I guess, picking up how asks are being modified in solicitations, perhaps, that are more partnership based versus transactional? So from your lens, what are you sort of hearing based on Darius's comments?
You know, I think if we get back to that, it's a relationship, right? That every time that we meet with someone and we're talking about our organization, yes, we need to understand what our case for support is, what our mission is, what our values are, and why we are doing what we do, and what service we're giving back to the community. But I think what matters most in that relationship is, you know, understanding what the passion is, what the interests are of the individual that we're talking with, or the group that we're talking with, and what they bring to the table. So it is that true partnership. You know, it really is saying, tell me, you know, what you understand about this organization that I work with. Tell me what you would like to see. So if you're at a child abuse and neglect, you know, organization, and it's your job to try to prevent that, what is it that brings that donor or that individual to want to partner with you? What is it that they would like to see different? What is it that, what has their experience been? And how can we, you know, find that common ground to say, this is a good match. You know, we're doing something that's important to you, and we're happy to be able to provide that service so that we can help you feel good that you're having an impact in this community. So I think what we're finding in terms of, you know, with our own donors is, you know, really helping them fulfill their mission. And, you know, individuals who have donor advised funds with us, you know, who want to give back to their community, want to know that the organizations that they're serving, you know, that they're providing support for, are really fulfilling that mission. They want to know that there's an impact being had. They want to feel like they're being heard, and that people are being accountable to them. So I think, you know, having organization, you know, as an organization, if you have your case of support and you understand the value that you bring, it's portraying that back to every single donor so that that individual feels heard, and that they feel like you're talking to them, that you're just not sending out mass mailings saying, please give to us, but that, you know, you're actually talking to that individual person. You know, things have become so, you know, we have so many ways that we can reach people today. And there's so many emails that people receive, you know, Giving Tuesday's coming up, for instance, and I know, you know, everybody will have a campaign during that time, and they should. But if you're on the other end of that, so if you're that donor and you're receiving, you know, the 10 emails from your organization that you're supposed to send out, and the 10 emails from another organization that you also support, and then that other organization sends you 10, all of a sudden you have 30 emails in your inbox. What is going to make your organization stand out? And is that the best way to reach that particular donor? You know, so does that donor, you know, is it important? What's the most effective way to reach that individual donor? You know, and really getting at individualized fundraising, right? Making sure that you're building friends within your network, and that you're showing that it's a true partnership, and that it's not just a solicitation after solicitation.
And one quick point to what Julie just said, I constantly remind myself in any relationship, listen to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Don't just listen and go, "Ah, da, da." If in a relationship, I went on a date with a gentleman, and he took me to see Star Wars. And that was our first and only date, because I made it clear I do not like these sorts of movies. They are not interesting to me. It was a painful 2-hour experience. No offense to Star Wars lovers, but that's a relationship. Listen to understand, because I have a degree in communication. I'm sure I made it clear this is not how I want to spend my free time. So when a funding partner, no matter what I think I know from the research, part of what I tell my team, we'll have everything ready just as a game for ourselves. Did we research them properly? And we'll share none of it. We'll begin with, tell us who you are, what you're about, what makes you tick. 8 times out of 10, it'll match up to some degree, but enough that it matters. You will hear something and you'll go, oh, that changes everything. Because that's an emotional. And if you're talking about transformational gifts, we have to really understand that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Major gifts are selfish acts. If I'm giving you the $200 every year, that operational gift, fine, take it. You're one of 18 organizations. But when we're talking about transformational legacy gifts, I want perpetuity. It's a selfish act, and there's nothing wrong with selfish. I want the world to know I believed in something. So I'm going to work with an organization. I had a funded partner call me last week and go, you understand marketing. So I'm going to do this. And I was like, I'm not judging you, because they literally say, I say, stop. If you're not if you are not breaching the integrity of this mission, you tell me what you need.
Yep.
It's my pleasure to do that. You want a press release or this? Our pleasure to do it. And I said to this funding partner, that's good for us too, because if people know that you are engaged with us, that validates our work. So don't feel bad about it. So we got to go ahead.
Well, Daria, I was just going to mention what I love about that thread is that is the marriage between building and service. And both of those sort of components, it's almost like we're making gumbo. And it's sort of, we're making the best gumbo with all of these different ingredients to not only take care, don't choke, but not only take care of and nourish our teams, but take care and nourish of the folks who are taking care of our organization, who are the donors and other stakeholders. So I would like to do 2 things. First of all, for the folks who are still with us, thank you for staying with us. We have no open questions, and I would love to see some questions pop up in the Q&A box. But Julie and Darius, I would like to change topics a bit, because what I'm hearing is, not change topics, but maybe make a little bit of a veer to the left. I'm hearing a lot of values and core principles like, it's a team sport, and all the sports metaphors that we've used, building trust. And these are sort of my anchor points: empathy and reciprocation. And we may be sort of the oddballs here, because as we all have fund development, advancement, fundraising horror stories that really mirror all of these systems that we're working to dismantle, especially right now. I mentioned them earlier: white supremacy, racism, misogyny, patriarchy. So I want to spend the rest of our time together with talking about, if our country as a whole, in every sector, working in individual families and communities, working to dismantle these systems, I can't help but think that those systems are alive and well in fundraising and in our own sandbox and playground. So I want to spend the rest of our time together with staying here and maybe feeling a little uncomfortable and challenged, but I can't help but think that a lot of folks who are watching right now would like to hear our perspectives about that sort of overlap. So if we're talking about building trust and relationships, how do we start dismantling some of these systems within our own houses? So Julie, I'd like for you to start with just your perspective on what we're all going through as people is maybe having an effect or have at play within your institution and what you're doing to dismantle those systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Yusuf, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think one of the things that our organization has been really looking at is, you know, during this time when we're really starting to look at equity, right? And what does that mean for our organization as a donor service organization? How can we open up this privilege of being able to have a fund where you can give back to your community to more people? So, you know, our donor base has been predominantly Caucasian, and we live in a community that is not all Caucasian. So what are we doing as an organization to open up our services to give every individual in the community the opportunity to create a fund with us? And you know what we really are trying to do is say, have we and can we do a better job of building relationships with all people in our community so that they have the opportunity to be philanthropic and give back. And so that is where our community foundation board, where our staff are really starting to spend some energy, is really saying, you know, how do we make sure that all people feel comfortable being a part of us as an organization, that all people in the community feel that they can have a voice in philanthropy, that they can give of their time, their talent, and their treasure and give it back to their community, that they see a role in being civically minded and a part. And one of the ways that we're doing that, we started a youth engagement and philanthropy program where we're working with high school age youth to provide opportunities where they understand what grant making is about, and they're actually in charge of a source of funding where they get to give it back to the community. And we're being very conscious about making sure that we're making this opportunity available to all youth in the community, not just those youth whose, you know, parents may be more likely to sign them up, you know, but to youth whose parents may not have ever served on a board before, or to youth who don't have that model of philanthropy in their family history, because those families may have had to spend more time just surviving. But we want to make sure that all youth see this as an opportunity to be able to be a part of their community and how important that part is. And that when we're looking, you know, so that's one aspect of it. And then when we look at our board, we say, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we're representative of the community we serve? What can we do more of to be more engaged with various different ethnic groups in our community, various different population groups, so that all people feel like they might have an opportunity to serve this organization and volunteer and be a part of what we do. And then when we look at who can create a fund with us, what are we doing to reach out and build relationships with individuals in the community who maybe traditionally haven't been a part of us, but are accepted and that they feel like they can be a part of our organization.
Julie, thank you. Darius, what would you add?
That which gets measured gets done. We are well past the time of good intentions. It's important, it matters. This is, and the builder in me goes, this is like any other business problem. What do you want the outcome to be? Measure it, who's going to be held accountable, and what is the reward or the repercussion if it is not met? I remember back when I was with the Chicago Urban League, and I won't name names, a white man who we've been trying to get a meeting with, wealthy, a millionaire, and we were so excited to get this meeting. He had funded the organization years ago, and there was a gap in the history. So as we were mining, and then he came in and he sat down and he spent, and I brought the CEO in, it was that important of a meeting, and another member of my team, and he sat down for that hour, basically telling us how our program should be different, And he saw something somewhere else in some other group he supports, and they do it this way, and we should do it this way. And then the pièce de résistance is when this white man began to share with me and our Black female CEO the problem with the Black family. And I remember sitting in the room going, and I had enough, but I didn't have the courage then that I have now, because if this were today, I would have literally stood up and went, and we're done here. We will never take your money. I will go door to door, do the Obama and raise every dollar before I take a penny from you, because you are walking here with a level of arrogance, with an absolute lack of understanding of the systemic issues that has gotten us here. And you think because you got money, because of the very systemic issues that put you in a better place from the moment of your birth, you want to walk in here tone deaf, unaware, and to speak to this organization with 100 plus years of direct, measurable service. Oh no, so not today. So that's the horror story. But I remember when we walked out, I went one way from 2 entrances to the conference room. I went one way. We basically had my staff person walk them out. I was like, I want this done. Before, it's something in both of our spirit, the CEO and I both met each other and how we went, never. And she went, I'm like, excellent. And we move on with our day. So that is part of the issue. And we dealt with it Urban League. I do the work here at Chicago State. Yes, we understand where the money is. But in order for us to truly make progress in a way that's more than just things we say at the party of how we're helping others, you got to bring the people who this impacts to the table. And how much money they have should not determine whether or not they get to sit where decisions are made. So if we really want to make a difference, I talk to a lot of foundations and everybody's moving there. Everything we do is rooted in equity. Okay, what do you know about equity? The folks who are in this quiet room where we don't know where decisions are being made, what do you understand? What is the lived experience? Have you been to those communities really in a deep way? And who is helping to keep you honest every day? Because as a Black man, I have blind spots. Even I have blind spots. And so I can have the best, you can have the best intentions, but if you have no experience walking in this world as a Black woman, you just, it's a blind spot. So I'm going to bring, if diversity is what we expect it to be, you want the best team at the table. You want the fullness of the American experience, forget the world, just ours. So that is where my concerns become in philanthropy. There are too few of me, there are too few of you, Yusuf. And part of why, here's my belief on that. Philanthropy at the end of the day, it's a 73% of fundraising that comes from individuals. I wasn't born into that. I don't have those networks. That is why there's so few of us. And that is why I had to become a generalist. I had to understand it all because I couldn't come through the pathway of major gifts. I don't have that network. I don't have that network. So that is why what I do is so important, so valuable. But the other thing I want to say is I heard Melody Hobson at an event I was producing at Urban League. And she sat on the stage and she said, what are you willing to sacrifice? Even when it's not directly impacting you. Because I started this conversation with, I feel privileged with a small p. It is incumbent upon me to speak louder, to raise my hand. Because when you know better, you must do better. And for those of us who have a seat at the table, we must hold ourselves and each other accountable every day. Every day, it's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And until we all feel that we really want to stick the landing versus rinsing and repeating this process, I'm exhausted. We're in the middle of 2 pandemics. Let's do it differently. We have to. We can't keep doing this. It's not working. And part of that for me really is being in a room going, but where's the representation? I'm sorry if that hurts feelings. I'll say it with as much grace as possible, but this is too important not to have people who this impacts at the table making decisions about their lives.
So Darius, that's a great point, and let's change the focus a little bit to an internal perspective. I think Julie and Darius, you both touched upon how racial equity, racial justice get extended out and projected out into how we engage with donors and external stakeholders one thing that I've been very focused on is, in essence, knowing those external stakeholders are going to be just fine. They're going to be fine. But how is my team? How can I help my team navigate the trauma that they're going through? So Darius, that anecdote that you shared about meeting that major donor, I'm curious, how as a leader, and perhaps it wasn't done at the time, maybe what would you have done differently now to ensure that the Chicago Urban League team properly navigated through that trauma?
Yeah. We did on the back end. My team and I, the other person who was in the room, we talked about it. And someone just asked a question. Here's the thing about making choices in life, and it's imperfect. Sometimes money can't rule your world. And I understand that it seems counterintuitive, but sometimes you've got to say no. You've got to say no. It's not worth the price to my soul or letting you near our very deserving and wonderful clients. Sometimes I'll find it somewhere else, but sometimes that is, and that was the conversation with my team. I said, here's the thing, and I'm glad, I was like, we were graceful, but we are not going to continue engaging with that donor. Now I understand where the gap is in the history. This probably happened before. But my team and I used to call it this. We would go to the clubhouse, and the staff at Urban League, literally the maintenance team, my road dogs, they literally built us a bench outside in the parking lot because we used to have a virtual clubhouse, so they gave us a real one. But again, that's a part of building relationships. But we would go there, and that's where my team went. I'm sharing too much, but I'm sharing it because I can. I used to smoke back then. And my team, we called ourselves the bubble because we said, if one of us is not doing well, none of us is doing well. If one of us is struggling, we're not a gargantuan large team. We've got to have each other's back. So we still call ourselves the bubble. I still connect with my team from Urban League, many of whom followed me from Youth Guidance. I still connect with them. But we were out in the clubhouse and we talked about it. It was a teachable moment for all of us. But it becomes a part of that. What do we believe? You see, I'm doing this right now as if I got the cigarette, I'm reliving it. But it was, what do we believe? What do we stand for in this rarefied space where we are sitting here? Black and brown folks and a white person on our team as well. We were all talking about this point. This still happens. Yeah. This still happens. And part of our job as fund development is to understand that all dollars are not good dollars.
It's interesting, Darius. Heidi Bloom popped in the Q&A and she says, herd leader calls saying no, bless and yes. Bless
Heidi, yes. Bless and release. Yes. I bless and release.
Yep. So let's thank you for staying with talking about the internal perspective. The other element is our boards, and the highest level of cream leadership. So I'm curious, and I think this may be one of the final questions of our time because it's already 17 after the hour. How are you both engaging your boards within this work? Like an easy example, how are you explaining to your boards the difference between equity and equality? The sort of those baseline fundamentals of the dismantling of these systems. How are you both engaging with your boards to ensure that you have that top-down support? Julie, why don't you go first with that question?
Well, we started doing some educational pieces with our board, one where we just kind of help them understand who we are as an organization, because if they understand who we are, what we do, and what our values are and what our mission is, then they can be better ambassadors, right, to all people. We also started this summer, we had a strategic planning session where we really started to take a look at what is our role as an organization and what is their role as a board in helping us lead through these times when there are issues that the entire community is facing. And that, how do we become a more all people serving organization? And how do we make sure that we are more representative of our community? And we just had some time where we broke into groups where we had discussion around it. And I think it has to start with conversation, and it has to start with more than just words in a statement, but just how do we take that conversation and then develop some actions as to what we're going to do as an organization. So, I think, it builds from that kind of group conversation, getting people comfortable having and talking about what the issues are. And then we're going to be having some one-on-one conversations with each one of our board members over this next, 6 months or so before our next meeting, and make sure that we're connecting and understanding where is this person at on our board? What do they think? And making sure that they have the comfort level to be able to be honest with us so that we can understand what their thoughts are and really help them understand then how that impacts us as an organization. And really get to more of the root of maybe what are the issues in the community? How is it impacting them as an individual? And then how does it impact us as an organization? And how can we work together and partner together to make sure that we're providing a better service back to the community?
Julie, thank you. Darius, how is Chicago State Foundation engaging? How are you engaging with your board?
Well, one of the first
that level of
things,
support.
one of the first things we did as we, for the first time last year, created, as we updated our roles and responsibilities, in addition to adding a give-get expectation, and we lost some board members. That's great. So long as we're all on the same page, back to the bless and release. So in that document, we added there very clear language around the paramount critical importance and expectation that the ambassadors and leaders for the foundation, who is the chief fundraising partner for the university, equity is important, it is key, it centers everything we do. Because equity is not in the mission of every organization, but equity should be in the culture and fabric of every organization. The other thing that we do with our board, in addition to just setting that ground document, I'm a firm believer that which gets measured, which it gets done, that worth saying is worth putting in writing and saving. But we talk honestly, directly, and consistently. It's not the little secret in the room. It is, if you are uncomfortable with it, then just squirm in your chair until your comfort level increases. We'll support you lovingly, but that's what's happening in this house every day. We're talking about it. We're naming it and claiming. We're calling it out when we don't see it. We're doing in services. And then at the end of the year, when we do evaluations of our board, and each of our, part of your expectation in addition to give-get is your commitment and service to equity. And what can we each say we measurably did to change the world in big and small ways. That's how we do it.
Thank you, Darius.
I'm sorry, in my opinion.
Thank you, and thank you both. And I think this is a good portion of the hour. I'm just checking the time. All right, we have a solid 8 minutes left. And I remember I brought this up in our initial sort of planning conversation. I think that the cherry on top for this conversation and I recognize 8 minutes is not enough time to do it justice, but the concept of mentorship and sending the elevator back down for folks. And I know I would not be here in my position, Darius, to your point, there are not enough of us, folks like us in leadership positions. And I can't help but think of the shoulders that I'm standing on. So I would invite the two of you to help end this conversation on a path of gratitude and talk a little bit about how mentorship has played a role in your career and your life. And if there's anyone you want to give a shout out to. Darius, why don't you start?
I'm happy to. And it's not just mentors. I have a personal board of directors that is fantastic. They hold me accountable. They support me. They guide me. You know this. I curate very carefully. Not everyone can be in that space with this indomitable group. But more than mentors, what I have gotten at this point are sponsors, and there's a key difference. Sponsors like Andy Zopp, who recruited me when I was at Youth Guidance, and I came in for a 30-minute meeting with her. That ended up being an hour and a half, and my jacket came off. And she said to me, after telling me transparency, clear and truth and strategic. And then she's like, and this is what I've done. For 9 months, I didn't take a salary. We did this, we moved this, and this is why we want you. she could tell me why my skill sets were of value. She could put it right in there. And she said to me, have I scared you? And I went, oh my God, yeah, this is a meeting. Oh my God, yes, but I want to work for you. And she said to me, take a week, think about it. If you mean it, let's get to work. So then I did that. Part of the reason why I fast forward now 7 years later, part of the reason why I am here at Chicago State in my dream job is because of that mentor sponsor constantly keeping an eye on me, constantly giving me support, constantly opening doors, constantly saying good things about me when I wasn't in the room in spaces that only she can walk. I'll never get to walk in. She reached out and said, Darius, you are about legacy. And she said, there's an organization, Chicago State was down the street from us on the south side doing the work. And she got me to learn. And I'm like, oh God, Z Scott's there. I know Z's a mentor and a supporter. And to work with these indomitable Black women again, that's how I got there. And along the way, I curated incredible mentors like Roderick Hawkins. And I can't survive without them. But there's also an accountability. I've got to be that for my team. My former staff at Urban League, she's now a vice president. Another one's a director. Another one just came to work for me at Chicago State years later as my new director of alumni and individual engagement. And to watch their growth and to feel like I was some small part of that. Whereas now they're mentoring me. I'm calling them now as peers going, what do you think? How do we do this? Like it's got to be this cycle, but you must hold yourself accountable for that. Unto whom much is given, much is required. You must. For every Andy Zah, for every Roderick Hawkins, I would be remiss and ashamed of myself if I did not return half of what they've given to me in ways that I don't even realize.
Whew.
Hercules.
Julie, what are your thoughts about mentorship and how has that played a role in your life?
I don't think I'd be here in this position if I didn't have people that supported me. And, there were instances at different times in my career where it was a gift to have a certain person that was kind of leading me, directing me, giving me some guidance, boosting me, helping me feel that I could do more than what I was doing. And I hope that I will continue to be able to pass that on. And it's a challenge, I think, that I give myself, is to find ways to build up those around me, not just take, from them, but to find ways to build them up and to constantly recognize the gifts that other people have and that they're bringing to our organization and to our community, and to recognize how important that those people are and what more they can do. And I think when you're looking for that mentor, it's not necessarily someone that is just like you. I think you have to look for people who may challenge you, may think differently than you, and that's okay. And look for people who you look at them and you go, okay, I see how you're doing that. I want to be able to do that. So, that kind of takes you a step forward. That doesn't just, say, oh, you're amazing, but says, I think you got more in you, and I think when you're looking for somebody to be that person to help guide you, look for those people that are going to push you beyond what maybe you're doing now and give you a little more opportunity to be better than what you are today.
Very well said, Julie. And how I'll bookend both of you in the narrative of mentorship is for the folks who are tuning in, the concept of your own board of directors mentoring, that takes time. Darius, I also have my personal board of directors, and it's taken years to curate. So folks who are listening, who are interested, know that's a long game. So Darius and Julie, we are at time. So I want to thank both of you for your honesty, your candor, your authenticity. I truly hope that our audience has enjoyed our time together as well. Folks who are about to leave the space. Thank you very much for joining us. I know my colleague Kanitha, as she goes by Key, brought in a little bit of a chat. If you're interested in contributing to the architecture of more programs, let us know. And also, I urge everyone online to consider becoming a member of Forefront. Your support, your engagement allows us to keep our trains moving and to provide those vital resources. So if you're interested in being a nonprofit member, a grant maker member, just go to our website, myforefront.org, to learn more. So with that, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Darius and Julie, thank you again for your time. Key, thank you very much for your support behind the curtain. And everyone, enjoy and make the most of today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Yes.
Bye-bye. Bye, Julie.
Bye.